Asa. I'm going to get some of these names up and I'm going to deal with them in just a moment. But Asa is our lead character. Then we have Baasha. And then we have Ben-Hadad. Hey Ben. Hey Dad. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So we'll deal with these guys in a moment. But Asa is our lead character. Asa is a good king overall. We'll get into that a little bit, but it talked about how Asa did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He lived for the Lord. The previous chapter talked about that he had a heart that was perfect toward God, which basically means that he was completely yielded over to God, that he was completely surrendered to God. Doesn't mean that he was perfect and that he never sinned and never made a mistake, because we know no human can do that, but Asa was completely yielded to God for most of his reign. This story, though, is the complete opposite. He's a good king overall, but there came a time in his life where he had a crucial confrontation. He did something that was wrong, okay? And the man of God, the prophet of that day, came and confronted him about it. He came and stood and looked him square in the eye and told him that he had done wrong. Now, Asa had a choice to make, and he did not make the right choice. Instead of submitting, humbling himself, and doing the right thing, he found himself in a very dangerous spot. I want to read verse number 10. I want you guys to look at it with me. Verse number 10, it says, "Then Asa was wroth with the seer." Wroth obviously means angry. He was upset. He's ticked off with the seer. The seer just means the prophet. So he's ticked off with this guy, and he puts him in a prison house. He locks the guy up. The next phrase says he was in a rage with him because of this thing, and Asa oppressed some of the people the same time. He went off. He got angry about it, and instead of, as I said, submitting and humbling himself, he found himself in the dangerous spot of being mad at the preacher. And ultimately, it resulted in his downfall. We'll talk about the consequences that came to him. But Asa, although he's a great king overall, if you read anything else about him except this final phase of his life, it's good. It's positive. He trusted God. He listened to the prophets. He did what he was supposed to do. He won great battles. He built great cities. He did all kinds of positive things for his nation. But because he found himself mad at the preacher, the rest of his life, it really ends in disgrace. And he just kind of withers away and dies. And even though he was such a great king, the last, I guess, taste you have in your mouth is, man, he messed up right at the end. And guys, I think for most of you in here, you're trying to do right, you're trying to do good. But I want to tell you, there are going to be some crucial confrontations that you guys have in life. And it usually happens when you do something wrong, and then you show up to church, and maybe in this class, or you show up in church, and they're preaching in there, and it gets down in your business. It calls you out. It confronts you. It faces up to you, and you have a choice to make. And I can't tell you how many people that I've known that have done good for a while. They've worked on bus routes. They've worked on van routes. They've gone out visiting. They've been good people. They've been faithful to church. They've given to the offering. They've done all the Christian things. They've read their Bible. They've prayed. But there came a time when they did something wrong. The preacher called them out, and they had that crucial confrontation. And instead of humbling, submitting, they get mad at the preacher. They're not here anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
And for the most part, guys, they're not here, and they're not in a good church anywhere.
Exactly.
If they are in any kind of church, it's a church that doesn't get in their business, that doesn't call out sin, that doesn't preach conviction, that doesn't push them to get involved in ministry and go out soul winning and pass out tracts. It's just one of those churches that everybody just gets together and has a nice time, and you go home and you do nothing about what the Bible says.
Exactly.
That's by and large what happens. And I've seen it happen time and time again. And because of that, they used to be on bus routes. They're not anymore. They used to pass out tracts. They're not anymore. They used to be doing something. Now they're doing nothing. And what happened? I'll tell you what happened. They got mad at the preacher. Mm-hmm. And I want to preach to you about that today. My title is this: Mad at the Preacher. All right? It happens. It happens all the time. I've been mad at the preacher before too. Okay? You say when? None of your business. All right? But I've been mad at the preacher too. But guys, there comes a choice. Listen, if you get mad at the preacher because of some side comment he made that it was his own opinion, then that's not a big deal.
Right.
It really doesn't matter that much. But if he says something from the Word of God that you don't like, you don't necessarily even have a problem with that preacher. You have a problem with that preacher's God.
Right.
And that takes it to a whole different level. This guy is a good king. He's done so many positive things. He's done a lot of, he's made it so prosperous, his nation. But he gets to this chapter. He's mad at the preacher. The rest of his life is downhill slide. Man, how could that happen? But let's get into the story. We're going to find out how it happened. Number one, I want to show you this. There was a successful conniving. A successful conniving. When I mean conniving, I mean he's scheming. Okay? He's being treacherous and kind of tricky about this. So let's get right into this. Verse number 1. It says, in the 6th and 30th year of the reign of Asa, Baasha, king of Israel, came up against Judah, built raiment to the intent that he might let none go out or come in to Asa, king of Judah. All right, so you have two different kingdoms. I try not to get bogged down in this. But this guy is the king of Judah, which is the southern kingdom. You have this guy who's over Israel. You said, I thought Israel was all together. It is, but not in this case. They were split up. So he's over the northern kingdom, Baasha, Israel. Asa is the king of Judah, the southern kingdom. What happens is this guy comes up to fight against this guy. Asa is our lead character, okay? Good king overall, but he has a downfall in this chapter, chapter 16. Baasha is coming up to fight against him. What he does is he gets a city right next to Jerusalem, and he builds up a great empire there. And basically his whole intent is to cut off any supplies going into Jerusalem or coming out of Jerusalem. Guys, in that day and age, if you don't have any supplies coming in, they're eventually going to die. They're going to starve to death. There'll be a famine. Okay? So that's his plan, and he's doing pretty good at it. That's what verse number 1 is saying. Baasha, king of Israel, came up against Judah. He built Ramah, that's the city, that's what he called it, to the intent that he might let none go out or come in to Asa, king of Judah. So that's his plan, to cut them off. Here's what Asa does after the pressure starts tightening up on him. He's in a tight spot. He doesn't know what he's going to do. So what he does, in verse number 2, then Asa brought out silver and gold out of the treasures of the house of the Lord, out of the king's house. He takes the silver that was out of the temple of the Lord, the ones that they would use to make sacrifice for the Lord. He takes that stuff out, the gold out, and then he takes some out of his own, it says his own house, and he pays this guy, who's the king of Syria. And just to have it make a little sense, and I'll try not to, again, get bogged down by this. Israel is this section right in here in the Middle East, okay? And you can basically say, this is Judah, this is Israel, and Syria goes up this direction. All right, so that's just a little bit of the background. All right, this is the Mediterranean Sea, the Sea of Galilee, Dead Sea, Jordan River, Sea of Galilee. So that's kind of what's going on here. All right, so this guy's coming down trying to beat this guy, and this guy, Asa, here, hires this guy, pays him off in silver and gold to come down and help him beat this guy. Understand? Mm-hmm. So that's what's happening. So the pressure is tightening up on Asa. And what he does, guys, is he takes some very precious things out of the house of the Lord and out of his own pocket, out of his own house, and he pays them off to get some help. Guys, whenever you're in a tight spot, it's always a bad thing if you have to take things away from the Lord to try to fix that problem. It's always a bad thing, guys, when you have to take, let's say you're in a tight spot and you're trying to get some girl to like you, and you have to give away your purity to get her to like you. You're taking away something that's precious. He was in a pressure, the pressure was tightening on him, but then he has some precious taking. He took some things that were precious that he couldn't get back very easy, and he paid this guy off. And guys, not only that, but sometimes you have to give away your character, you have to give away your clean mind, you have to give away things that are costly, things that you can't get back very easily. Listen, you can't go on the internet, on Amazon, on eBay, and buy some character. You can't buy a clean mind. You can't buy peace. You can't buy those things. Listen, guys, you give that stuff away. You say, man, I'm in a tight spot. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, let me take some of that time. Listen, don't steal from God so that you can fix some other problem. Well, I got these bills, so I can't show up to church anymore. I got to work. Not a good plan. Mm-hmm. Well, I can't give you the offering anymore. I can't give my tithes and my offerings. I can't pay my 10% like I should. I'm in a tight spot by the time. I just got to take care of this. It's never a good, listen guys, it's never a good idea to take things away from the Lord so that you can fix some problem. Because you know what you're doing? You're digging yourself a bigger problem.
Yeah.
The pressure's tightening on him. There's a precious taking. He takes the things that are precious, and then he talks to this guy in verses 3 and 4, and he tries to persuade him. Talking to Ben-Hadad, he's saying in verse number 3, there was a league between me and thee, as there was between my father and thy father. Behold, I have sent thee silver and gold. Go break thy league with Baasha, king of Israel, that he may depart from me. Ben-Hadad hearkened unto King Asa and sent the captains of his armies against the cities of Israel. So this guy listens to Asa. He comes down and helps him fight against Baasha, king of Israel. And they smote all these cities, Ajon, Dan, Abel, Maim, and all the store cities of Naphtali. So, guys, what happens here is he persuades him to help him out. He takes these precious things, he gives them to him, the gold and silver out of the temple. And you know what happened? It seems like a perfect triumph. This guy comes down, helps him out. They beat Baasha really bad. They get him out of there. Verse number 5, check this out. And it came to pass when Baasha heard it, he heard that this other king was going to help out Asa, that he left off building of Ramah, the city, and let his work cease. Here's what Asa did. Then Asa, the king, took all Judah, and they carried away the stones of Ramah and the timber thereof, wherewith Baasha was building, and he built therewith Geba and Mizpah. You know what he did? So, this guy hears about Ben-Hadad helping out Asa. He leaves out. He evacuates from that city. Asa hears about it. Comes down that city that was right above Jerusalem, that was cutting off all the supplies. He takes all the stones and all the timber and all the building supplies that they had. He takes that stuff and he goes and builds his own city somewhere else. That's exactly what's going on. And what do you think? If you're Asa here, what are you guys thinking? You're thinking, man, that worked like a charm, right? How could you not? I mean, you paid this guy off. He helped you beat Israel. Bam. It seemed like, man, your plan worked. Everything came through like clockwork. Man, it's perfect. Perfect. Exactly like I wanted it to be. And it seemed like a perfect triumph. He got to pillage the timber. He got to take their supplies and go build his own city. And everything seems great and good at this time. But he put off the truth. And we'll explain what that means in a moment. So he had a successful conniving. I want you to notice, he didn't do things right. You'll understand why in a minute. He didn't do things right, but it worked. It worked. Listen, guys, just because you've done something wrong in the past doesn't mean the consequences haven't caught up to you yet.
Exactly.
Listen, but don't get it wrong. They will. They will. Hey, we messed around, me and my girlfriend, nothing's happened yet. Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. Listen, God's time frame is not our time frame. And you walk away from him, the consequences will show up. Maybe not now, but don't think you're getting away with it. There's a successful conniving. Number 2, I want you to see the serious confrontation. Verse number 7. I love the timing of this. Verse number 7. And at that time, Hananiah the seer came to Asa, king of Judah. So notice this, guys. This guy is coming back from his battle that he won. Asa's state of mind is, man, I'm the man. Look at this. We get to build our own cities. We get to push away the other king. Man, everything worked perfectly. Wow, wonderful. He's rejoicing. He's happy. Everything's great. Verse number 7, the first 4 words, it says, and at that time, right when everything was great, right when Asa's partying, right when he's happy, right when his emotions are at a high, Hananiah the seer, the prophet, came to Asa, king of Judah. And he had a message for him. I find that a very interesting moment. You know when we usually hit people with what they should do? When they're at rock bottom. When they're broken, when they're hurt. Not when everything is great.
Right.
Not when everything's great. Listen, when that guy skips church and doesn't care about God and he gets promoted and gets a raise, we usually don't go to him right then, Brother Walter, and say, hey, this is not going to work out for you. Dude, what are you talking about? I got a raise. Everything's great. I got promoted. I got a position at my job now. Look at this. Hey, I know you weren't supposed to hang out with those friends, but man, you had a lot of fun last night. You went to that club. You were partying. You didn't get caught. Everything worked out like a charm. Oh, really? The prophet says, oh, that doesn't matter. It's an interesting moment. He shows up with this interesting timing saying, hey, Asa, don't be too happy about it because you did something wrong. What did he do wrong? Well, he insulted the master. At that time, Hananiah the seer came to Asa, king of Judah, and said unto him, because thou hast relied on the king of Syria, and hast not relied on the Lord thy God, therefore the host of the king of Syria escaped out of thine hand. He's saying, you know what, Asa, you faced that battle, and you faced that tough time, and I understand the pressure was ratcheting up on you, and I understand you were in a tight spot, but you did something wrong. You know what you did wrong? You relied on Syria. You didn't rely on God. You say, what's the big deal with that? Well, let me get into my next point, and then I'll explain what's going on with that. He had done that before. He had relied on the Lord, and it came through great. And God blessed him. But God's problem with Asa here is he's saying you relied on someone else to help you. And not only that, you paid them off with stuff that belongs to me to get their help instead of relying on God himself. The interesting moment, the insulted master, he's saying you relied on Syria, not God. And then he's saying there's an issue that will make a return. At the end of verse number 7, he's saying, therefore the host of the king of Syria escaped out of thine hand. He's saying Syria may have helped you now, but a few chapters on, guys, Syria comes back, and they're not an ally here. They're a foe. They're an enemy. They're an adversary. And they come within an eyelash of killing Asa's own son, Jehoshaphat. Wow. What God's telling him here is he's saying, you feel happy right now? You feel rejoicing right now? You got a smile on your face, you partying, and you think everything's great? No, sir. You know why? Because I'm showing up. Even though you're feeling great right now, things aren't so great. You've insulted God. You've slapped God in the face. And another thing, you let Syria get away from you. Syria's going to come back, and they're going to be your enemy pretty soon. Hey, guys, when you do something wrong, it all may seem to be going good. You know what the Bible says, right? There's the pleasures of sin for how long?
A season.
A season, right? So it lasts for a short time, and you may be in that short time right now saying, no, Brother Tom, you're crazy. You're crazy. I've been messing around with my girl. Man, everything's great. Won't be for long. Man, I've been hanging out with that friend. I know he doesn't care about God. I know from the book of Proverbs that we've been studying, he probably is more categorized as a fool than a wise man. But, you know, it hasn't affected me yet. I've been listening to that music, but it doesn't affect me. Yeah, go ahead with that. Go ahead with that. Mm-hmm. Listen, guys, you cannot defy God and prosper. You can't go against God and expect it to work out. I don't know why we can't get this through our brains. We all do it. I love the timing of this, though. Because Luke, he doesn't wait till everything crashes apart on him and say, see, I told you so. Everything's great. He's uplifted. He was successful. He paid off Syria, but it worked. But the prophet shows up and says, oh no, boy, we got an issue here. And the issue will make a return. And notice, guys, verse number 8, he gives a memory, an instantaneous memory. Verse number 8, he says, were not the Ethiopians and the Lubims a huge host with very many chariots and horsemen, yet because thou didst rely on the Lord, he delivered them into thine hand. Go back to chapter 14. I'll give you just a snippet of what that is talking about. All right, back to chapter 14. Now notice this. This is Asa earlier on in his reign, earlier on in his life. Verse number 7, therefore he said unto Judah, let us build these cities and make them about walls, towers, gates, bars, with the land, where the land is yet before us, because we have sought the Lord our God, and we have sought him, and he hath given us rest on every side. You know what Asa's saying about it? He's saying we've pursued God, we've sought him, we've desired him, we've gone after him. Because of that, God's blessed us, and he's given us rest all around. You get into verse number 9, and that rest kind of fades away. He has a battle show up. And I want you guys to pay attention to this. It says, and there will come out against him Zerah the Ethiopian with a host of 1,300 chariots, and came against Merisai. Guys, 1,000, you know how many that is? That's 1,000,000 soldiers. Asa goes out to battle, and he has 1,000,000 man military coming against him. What is he going to do? Verse number 11, this is what he does. This is the man that we're talking about that relied on Syria. This is the man that paid off Syria with God's stuff. Verse number 11, this is earlier on in his life. Asa cried unto the Lord. He's in the middle of this battle. He sees the vast multitude of troops on the other side, and he's scared. Verse number 11, Asa cried unto the Lord his God and said, Lord, it is nothing with thee to help with many or with them that have no power. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rest on thee, and in thy name we go against this multitude. O Lord, thou art God, let not man prevail against thee. That's a great verse. You could preach 5 sermons on that verse. Man, Asa is trusting God. He gets in the middle of this battle, and he says, oh my goodness, Look how many people are out here against us. What does he do? He relies on God. He trusts in God. He's saying, God, you've got to come through for us. He's saying, God, it's nothing with you to help us, whether you use a lot of us or you use us that have no might. By the way, guys, God doesn't need somebody that's really wise and really strong and really powerful to use. God can use the weakest of us. The weakest of us. Listen, you don't have to have all the great background. You don't have to have all the pedigree. Listen, if your heart is sincere with God, God can use you today. Amen. In great ways. He's crying out to God. You know what God does? We're still in chapter 14, verse 12. So the Lord smote the Ethiopians before Asa and before Judah, and the Ethiopians fled. God helped Asa win this battle against a 1,000,000-man army. Wow. Amazing. Notice chapter 15, verse number 2. The prophet talks to Asa again. He went out to meet Asa and said unto him, Hear ye me, Asa, and all Judah and Benjamin. The Lord is with you while you be with him. And if you seek him, he will be found of you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. He's basically saying, Asa, you've done good in the past. But right now, you need to keep seeking God. Listen, guys, for some of you, you may have done great with God in the past. But how about now? Don't get lazy now. Don't start slacking now. Don't cast off all the stuff you've been taught now. Well, by the time I'm about to graduate, I'm getting older, I'm getting a job, I'm kind of liking this girl. That's all great, but you keep trusting God. God's the one that's blessed you all this time and helped you and taught you things. Don't forget about it now. Amen.